Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today is all about drawing roses. These are going to be very simple and easy to do, and you can put these in your illustrations or your bullet journal. So all you need is some paper or a journal and some ink pens. Let's get started. So to draw the very first one, you'll really only need two elements, a circle and a triangle, except that the triangle is going to be slightly curved. So we'll make the circle first and then curve the triangle into the center. And every time you come in with a part of that triangle line, come about 2/3 down into that last triangle piece. And then just keep going into the center until it gets smaller and smaller. So if you want to do a cluster, say that you had 3 roses, you would do the same technique. And then a nice little trick to turn the direction of your rose, say you want it pointing down, you would make your first triangle line about halfway into that circle. So that center is going to look a little bit tilted and it's going to look like the rose is pointing downwards. This is a fun one to just experiment with different angles and seeing if you can switch up your composition. And then just adding a couple of tiny leaves and your first cluster is done. Alright, so moving on to the second option, and this one's really easy. You're essentially just going to need to do a wiggly line in a circular shape. That's all it takes. So starting from the center dot, you're going to move outward in a spiral and just make some wavy lines. And the larger you go, the larger the rose is going to be, so go as far as you like, add a couple of leaves. And then for the cluster, you can do the same thing and just start your spiral in different directions if you want to change up your composition. So I'm placing my second spiral in a slightly different direction here. And then just a few simple leaves to pull it together. Okay, so for the third one, there are a couple more elements, but they're just as easy. So you'll start with a swirl, any direction you like, and a basic U shape. So this one will be first a rosebud with a swirl in and the U shape right underneath it to make a simple rosebud with a stem. And then we'll do the same thing and build on it to make a rose that's a slightly more open rose. The only difference is it has a little S curve right across the front, and you can go any direction you like, just choose to the right or to the left, and that's going to look like your petals are starting to open, and then you build on that by adding a few more petals as it's opening, and you can go again as far as you like, add a few leaves and a stem. Alright, so putting these two into a cluster form, I'll start with that bud shape in the center and then build up my petals that are opening. The bottom petals are going to be a little bit rounder and flatter, and the top ones are going to be a little bit more narrow. And then the second rosebud, I'm going to put in a slightly different direction with that swirl and a little bit smaller so it's maybe less open. Add a few leaves, and that's my cluster. So there you have 3 different ways to draw simple roses. And a fun way to incorporate these into your illustrations or say your bullet journal is to put them into borders or corners. And so I'll show you how I do it. The first border is going to use that first technique, and I'm making little clusters along a line. There's 2 in the first, 1 in the middle, and 3 on the right hand one. And then adding little leaves. And then just a simple double line going right through to pull that together. So the second border is going to be a little bit more even in rhythm. So I'm putting these little roses with that swirly wiggly line technique evenly spaced, and then the border will have leaves that are also evenly spaced. Sometimes it's fun to play around with your different compositions even on a border. So when you do something evenly spaced, it's got more of a pattern and repetition feel. And then you can do something completely the opposite, where I have one focal point in the center, using that third technique of the rosebud in the middle with a swirl. And then the border line will come off the center. And instead of adding more leaves and flowers on the border line, I'm just putting in some vine, sort of a vine wavy line, just to keep it simple and elegant. You can also go back in with a thinner pen tip and add in some details. So I like to color in the leaves with a little bit of texture lines. Feel free to leave it as is or add in any textures that you like. Another fun way to use these roses is in frames. So for example, if you wanted to put a little graphic element in the corner of a frame, you could easily do that with each of these 3 techniques. This is the first one. I'm making the little cluster with that double line as the frame. And then just going in and adding some texture to the leaves so there's some contrast between the rose petals and the leaves. For the second corner frame, I'm putting in just 2 roses and 2 leaves, and then this time I'm doing a dash line. This would be a good element to use, say, if you wanted to mimic fabric or show more of a handcrafted texture. Okay, then for the third option, I'm just going to do 1 single rose with 2 leaves and keep it really simple. And then put a little accent on the frame lines with just a vine and some tiny vine leaves. I feel like all these elements could be really good for mix and match designs, and you can always come up with something unique just by changing up 1 or 2 elements. So I created these step-by-step roses in 3 different ways, including the borders and corners. As examples, I put them straight into my bullet journal, almost as a cheat sheet, because I wanted to use it and reference back to it if needed. If you recreate these in your work, please tag me. I would love to see it, whether it's over here or on Instagram, and let me know. I've also gone ahead and scanned in these steps and created a printable PDF. So I will link that in the description below, and if you feel like you want to have this and keep it on hand and refer to it, feel free to do so. Use it for your personal use, and you can print it any size you like, stick it in your journal, keep it on your desk. I hope you enjoy this quick reference guide. Thanks for joining me, and if you like this, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.